Hello everybody, NeoPioneer here again. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about backup heat. You can use kind of technology or how I'm using it. So I kind of mentioned before that I'm into solar power, and I started a while ago where I would actually order my own batteries from China, get the parts and put them together and build them. And I put together a small system just to kind of, get used to what you can actually run on solar, how many panels you would need, how much battery backup you would need, and all those kind of things. It's just kind of an interesting thing as you start to realize how much power you use and what it would take to be truly kind of off-grid with solar. And I did do solar up at my cabin, and I still have a backup solar set up at my main house. But kind of came into like winter time, what would be my backup heat. So I have a heat pump currently, and where I live, if it gets down the teens and the 20s, it has a hard time keeping up. So I didn't go with a Mitsubishi or something like that can has a high enough SEER rating where you can go down to really cold temperatures and it can keep up, type of thing. But so when I started looking at things how I solved the problem for myself was adding a pellet stove. So pellet stoves, they use very little electricity once they get going. So it might be 400 or 500 watts as the heating element is starting up and kind of getting the fire going. But after that, it's just fans and a blower motor. And that really, for me, only uses about 70 or 80 watts of power. So for that, I can run a line from my solar setup, and I can pretty much power my fridge and my freezers and that pellet stove for probably 4 or 5 days pretty easily, with no sun. If you have any kind of sun, then obviously it extends. When you start getting into solar, you start looking at days of autonomy, how long can you go if it's gray and cloudy for a stretch or rainy or whatnot. But for me, the pellet stove is the way, and it kind of supplements my other heat pump, because when it does get down to those really cold temps, I can pretty much run that thing, and yeah, it keeps the house really warm and saves the HVAC from having to run when it's not very efficient. The pellet stove, you do have to store pellets, so you have a place for them. But for me, I also use it for my cat litter. It's really easy for cat litter if you haven't tried it and you train the cats on it early. Pretty much, if they pee on it, it just disintegrates to sawdust, and it's so cheap. I mean, it's $9, $8 for a 40-pound bag, and you can sift it or you can toss it. But I have multi uses for it, and for me, it's a really efficient way to have backup power in the winter. If something happens or power goes out extended period, I'm good to go. Don't have to rely on propane or gas, or put in one of those wall-mounted propane heaters that some people have, which for some may be a better option. But for me, since I was already into solar, I kind of went down what's the easiest way I can get heat with the least amount of power, and for me that's a pellet stove. Obviously you could go wood stove, but there's a lot more to adding a wood stove to a house and cleaning it out and all that. The pellet stoves are generally safe, and the exhaust you have to do for them, it's not as intense as a true wood stove. They do make pellet stoves that are small wood burners too. But yeah, for me, that's my emergency heat backup, and it's actually how I heat my cabin too. since it's all on solar there. Yeah, hopefully you got something useful out of that, and talk to you later.